Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Yesterday I went to a collector show for the airline industry, and it was up by LAX at the Embassy Suites. This is the second show that I've been to. Haven't been to any airliner shows before, but thanks to Mike Mashot's channel of Celebrating Aviation, saw that this show was going to be a local show, so I thought I'd give it a shot and see what kind of things they had. Maybe find some vintage model kits. So the first show I went to in January really was kind of a bust. Didn't have much of anything. It was, I'd say 75% prefabricated, die-cast airliners, a little bit of vintage stuff. Hardly any kits. I think the only table that really had any real kits was Mike Mashot had a table selling off a few of his kits, and that was about it. So I wasn't really expecting a whole lot from this show, but there was a family there that was selling off their father's basically lifetime collection of airline stuff. And there were some other things mixed in, and I picked up a few things at some pretty reasonable prices because they were just looking to dissolve the collection. There was about 17 tables that they had rented that's how much stuff this guy had. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I got. The first thing here is a DC3 control yoke, and it's been mounted on a nice board here with a beautiful rendition of a DC3 and Western Airlines livery, and it's got a little plaque on there for DC3 yoke, and it's can still turn it, which is kind of neat, and it has the original Acorn hub on it, and these become surprisingly rare. And I was pretty excited to pick this up and hang this up on my wall. So that's a first item from the show. Show you something.
Well, I don't know if I'll.
Next up for items purchased at the show is this all-metal chromed manufacturer's display model of a Martin B-57 Intruder. It's in USAF markings. Has most of the decals still in place. On the bottom side, you got the decals as well, and on the side. So this is solid metal. It weighs about 4.5 pounds, and here you can see where it would have been mounted on some sort of a base. Typically these would be like given away to project officials, people with the Air Force procurement, anybody who is associated with the program. These would be nice gifts, help promote their products, and it's pretty nice to see one of these in this good a shape. So it's roughly about maybe 10 inches long. The wingspan probably about 10 inches as well too. So it's a pretty good sized model. Pretty nice to see that. maybe I'll be able to find a base somewhere I can mount this. And now for the next item. So up next we have what I believe is another Cruver. This is post-war when Cruver was making their models for industry, such as airlines and manufacturers, as opposed to everything being committed to production for recognition models. So this has all the hallmarks of the recognition model of the DC-4 / C-54, including the way all the details being done, the cowling flaps, all the little details. It looks like there may have been some modification being done to the original mold on it, but it looks very much like what the Cruver kit or Cruver model was. So interesting things on this. You've got the United mainliner markings on it. This is all decals, decal down the side. And then interesting, the nose appears to be painted with the whole nose area being painted. Then you can see where the decal then starts here, but you also do have the United logo down here. It looks like somebody put an eye screw in here and kind of split the fuselage. So this one you can tell is a hollow model. Same thing down the side here. You can see where the brake is with the decal and the painted nose coming down the side. And another thing that leads me to believe this is a Cruver is it's got black plastic underneath the paint. And you see a few other areas where some of the paint's kind of rubbed off and it appears to be black underneath. Now what is different about these versus the regular wartime recognition models is this actually has props. They appear to be just held in by pins or nails, but they are rotating, which is nice. We'll take a look at the bottom side. So again, you can see some of the seam lining where there's a little bit of the black plastic showing through, where it's kind of wearing off on the edges. Appears to be all black plastic underneath, but pretty neat model. And 72nd scale on these. You may be able to kind of tell there's a little bit of a wing warping kind of going on here, kind of curving up a little bit. Same thing was happening on the that recognition model just before this one. It's not uncommon for these Cruvers to have some sort of warping, sagging, sometimes just literally dissolving. These post-war ones were definitely a lot more stable, but there's always something a little off with a Cruver or any one of these plastic recognition models from the era. So that's it for this one, and we'll see what else we got. Next up is a recognition model of the DC-4 / C-54 Skymaster. This is actually a post-war 50s recognition model, since this aircraft was still being utilized by the Air Force and various other nations into the 60s even. The Air Force decided to get a newer recognition model made of this, and this is one of them. So this is typical of the same type of production as the wartime ones, although I have noticed that most of these post-war ones tend to be a lot more stable and usually in better condition. The wartime stuff, I think they were just slapping together whatever bits and pieces of plastic and chemicals they had, and so they weren't necessarily the most stable sometimes. But these post-war ones, they could take their time, and probably the plastics were better developed by them as well too. So it still follows the same kind of design, where there are surprising high amount of details on it for considering you're just supposed to be really kind of getting a silhouette, but it's in really good shape. There is a little bit of a crack across right here, but everything else is in pretty good intact shape. I'll show you the bottom side of it. There's the hole where the string would go through so you could hang it up. Your tail, you can see how it was put together. This whole tail piece was one separate unit that was then attached. And we do have some markings. USAF Cargo, USN R5D-5, C54G, January of 1952. And that's this one. And now for the next item. Next up is a little bit of paper items. First off, we've got a United Airlines passenger ticket and baggage check. Looks like you got probably a DC-7 on the cover there. And it's got the complete itinerary. This person was flying from Fort Wayne to Indianapolis to Atlanta to Tampa. This was January 4th, 1957. Flying out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And here's the return ticket. Flying from St. Petersburg to Indianapolis to Fort Wayne. The return was on January 4th. Or, I don't know, I'm sorry, that's the date of the issue of the ticket. You can see it's $121 plus $12 in tax for $133 for this trip for Mrs. Harold Hamilton, and she paid cash. Kind of neat, showing you on the back here, #1 Coast to Coast Airlines United. Next up we got a Eastern Airlines ticket, showing you the Golden Falcon, Super Sea Connie, and the Silver Falcon. And this one looks like also from 1957, January 11th. This one's going from Birmingham to Indianapolis to Detroit. This flight cost $83.80 with $8.38 in tax. And then we have, here's another Eastern Airlines Golden Falcon. This is the sleeve that maybe this would have come in. And inside here is a check luggage tag. So you know what, I think I'm going to put this in here. So I think these probably belong together. And then we've got a little bit of luggage stickers. Take these out. And so we got Garuda Indonesian Airways. So these would be when you checked your bag back in the day. They would you just slap these things right onto your luggage. It's a way of advertising for themselves, and also kind of letting your friends know, hey, I went on a trip. So here we got a TWA one with Super Connie, Irish Airlines. Another Connie on there. TCA, Trans-Canada Airlines. Another TWA. This is actually a little bit of a different one. You can see the difference between the Connies. This is the earlier Connie. A little bit of an earlier style of script. And then here's another TWA for air cargo. And there's a lot label that would have gone with that. Here's a TWA Super G. Ultimate in the constellations. There's another TWA Air Freight. Air Freight to Cleveland from the Flying Tiger Lines. And another TWA Air Freight. And then we also have, this is a pack of stationery that was kind of lightweight stationery to be used for airmail. So this is from, looks like 1945. So I got two packs of these. Let me pop one open here real quick for you. So you get these envelopes. And these are lighter weight paper, smaller size, specifically designed for airmail. So you'd have a lower price, or I'm sorry, a higher price for it being airmail, but it would keep the weight down by using this lightweight paper. It's almost see-through tissue or vellum. So that's it for some of this paper stuff. Let's see what else. Next up, we have one of the, I think, the coolest advertising items that I saw there all day. I just had to bring it home with me. It's a Dutch Airlines KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines. And it's a flying clog with the captain sitting in it. And it appears to be made from an actual wooden clog. And it looks like it's hand done. So I don't know if this is a one-of-a-kind thing. This appears to be a decal. This guy's all hand painted. And the Royal Dutch Airlines is all hand painted. It looks like just a regular klompen that's been cut open and used to advertise KLM. I'd say this is probably 1950s as well. Kind of a neat little piece. Don't see something like this every day. Next up, we have a 1960s lunchbox with some pretty mod-looking stewardesses. Their visor, eyeglass, or sunglasses, little mini skirts. Still wearing gloves though. On the opposite side, the National Airways. I think that's a DC-8 on there. And you've got all the different airlines. Eastern, Pan Am, American Airlines, Northwest, United. Kind of neat, yeah. If you're a kid who's really into airlines, instead of taking the Scooby-Doo lunchbox or Howdy Doody, take the airliner. Pretty cool. And I am actually going to use this to take my lunch to work. Because I'm going to be the cool kid on the block. Next up is a series of commemorative plates. I acquired one of these about 10-15 years ago for North American, and hadn't really seen them much since then, but there's a few of them at the show, so I picked up a couple additional ones. So this one's for Douglas, and showing you what Douglas aircraft were being made at the time. DC-3, A-20s, Douglas was producing Flying Fortresses under contract from Boeing. There's a Douglas plant. Douglas World Cruiser logo. And some more logos around the outside. So the back side of these, it's a little more information. They're made by Vernon Kilns. And a little bit of information about these. These were produced in the 40s. Next up, we have one for Consolidated Vultee. A little later issue one. You can see it's a little crisper in its detail. So Convair, which is Consolidated and Vultee brought together, Consolidated and Vultee Aircraft, shortened to Convair, in San Diego and Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. XF-92, we've done a kit review on that. And there's a price tag on this. And there we go. And the final one is Vultee before they joined up with Consolidated. This is a wartime produced one. That's Vultee, their Vanguard Pursuit, Vengeance Dive Bomber, Valiant Trainer, Vigilant Observation, and Stinson Voyager. And must be their plant down there. And this one's even saying first edition 1941. It's kind of an interesting thing. And that's just about it. We've got, I think, one or two more items and we're done. A little more paper stuff. Here, take these out of the bag for you. So the first thing is an American Airlines. It almost looks like a baggage sticker, but it's actually an ink blotter. So you've got the address of American Airlines in Boston. You can see it's been used maybe a little bit because there's a little bit of wet ink on the back. So ink blotters, for those of you who aren't familiar, back when pens used to have, or were fountain pens, we used to draw in raw ink out of bottles and would be stored inside, and then you'd use it. The ink didn't dry very fast, and so to prevent smudges, you would, after you did some writing, you blot this on top of it. So this is kind of a like a construction paper backing on it, so it would absorb the undried ink to make your letter dry a little faster, so you didn't smudge all over the place. Got another passenger ticket for Eastern Airlines. This one is from October 1950, and the fare was only $15 going from Tallahassee to Atlanta. And then here we have some stationery from World War II. It's Army Air Corps style stationery with a B-17 on there. The top of the letter, some other aircraft, and the Air Corps shoulder sleeve insignia. Got a few pages of that. Looks like a playing card from Air Force 2, which would be vice presidents. And this is something I thought was kind of neat. It's called a Cartoonist Aircraft Album. And in reading, the introduction to it, it appears that Convair was saying that they thought that the cartoonists of the day who were doing political cartoons, comic books, whatever, what have you, were doing drawings of kind of outdated aircraft, still kind of doing stuff from pre-war time period. And so Convair wanted to get the cartoonists to kind of update their drawings and make them look a lot more modern. So they put this book together to be sent out to magazines, newspapers, publishers, to try to get their artists into drawing a little bit more update things. And just so happens that they might end up looking like Convair aircraft. Included here is actually a letter from the Convair Director of Public Relations, Emmett McCabe, to the Vice President of Sales in Western Airlines, letting them know, hey, here's this book that we talked about, and it features some of your people in it, which we will see in a bit. So it's a nice way of kind of showing some updated aircraft, what the interiors look like now, what a cockpit would look like. Nice clamshell engine on the Convair. And then here's what a bomber looks like now. What a jet fighter. Transport. Of course, these last two didn't really make it into production or anything. Kind of a way of showing what it would look like. Here's some more interior airlines transports. Then you got liaison planes, guided missiles, and then uniforms. Some updated uniforms. This is what Air Force crew look like today. The Navy crew, Navy pilot gear. And then finally, what airline would look like. And sure enough, Western Airlines. That's who that letter was made out to. That's an American Airlines crew there. And American Airlines. So this was produced in, looks like 1948 or 1949 or 1950. So it's something kind of interesting directly from the manufacturer. Next up is another manufacturer's display model of a Lockheed Electra, the L-188. And this doesn't have any particular airlines markings, because this is marked in the prototypes markings from Lockheed that they would use for trying to sell it. This is an actual aircraft, the N1881. Eventually did get assigned to an airline, and eventually got scrapped. It's unfortunate that the very first one just got scrapped. So this I assume would be for like some notepad. Then you've got the Lockheed Prop Jet Electra, which is also what's down the side. And I was not able to find a maker's mark on this as well. Here's the other side of it. It does have all its props that are metal. Kind of an interesting way of attaching it to the base. And there you go. Next we have a little bit of KLM stuff. And so first off, we've got a little brochure, KLM in a nutshell. Of course, it's in a, I guess it's a walnut. And it is a little bit of information about KLM. KLM is the national airlines for the Netherlands. It talks about when they were first flying. Looks like this is 1948. So this is produced. Booking offices around the world. There's that. And then this is a KLM route chart. Not even going to attempt to pronounce what it says on here. But what this is a set of maps showing all the routes that connect all of KLM throughout Europe. So like this is the Amsterdam to Naples route. And then Rome to Cairo. Basra to Karachi. Cairo to Basra. Karachi to Calcutta. Calcutta to Bangkok. Bangkok to Singapore. And then Singapore to Batavia, which is in the Dutch East Indies. So this was the air route to get from Amsterdam to the other side of the world. Well, I guess it shows right here. All the way around and then end up in the Dutch East Indies. So that's kind of neat. And then finally, this is an onboard in-flight magazine that would have been handed out to passengers in the 40s, early 50s. Flying Dutchman. Great artwork right there. And it's chock full of all kinds of advertisements from European companies. Typical Dutch outfits for KLM. So, very nice, kind of high-end quality in-flight magazine for KLM. All right, let's see what else we got. Next up, we have a program from the 1928 National Air Races and Aeronautical Exposition. Every year, starting in the 1920 in the United States up through to the late 40s, there was a national air race that combined both point-to-point race, typically cross-country, extended, like across a big chunk of the United States, and then they would have some pylon racing on a closed circuit. And most people think of this as like the Cleveland races, but the National Air Races actually had moved around from place to place. Cleveland was used quite frequently, and eventually then became the main place where it was held almost all the time. But this one here is from Los Angeles in 1928. This was at Mines Field, and it was from September 8th to the 16th. And let's take a look at it. So you've got a list of different committees, air race people, advisory committees, special events, the program for the day, of course some advertisements. Hey, there's Richfield, we just saw that. Dobbs hats. So, National Guard race, Transcontinental nonstop race. So kind of some neat stuff. And here's just all the entrance into the Transcontinental race, prizes, entrance. History of the National Air Races, and finally a Texaco ad. So something kind of neat. Don't see these every day. Next up is another manufacturer's display model This is a Martin B-26 Marauder. Appears to be an A model because it's got short wings, not much incidence on the main wing. The air intakes on the cowlings are the small type, short tail, pointed tail even, all the hallmarks of the early A model. And this is, I believe, cast aluminum. May have been chromed at some point or had some kind of painting on it. It does have these tiny little holes here, which I believe are to be able to hold these propellers that came with it. So there's a couple of propellers that are, do have spinners on them, cuffed like the early B-26As had. And then here's the stand. It is removable, this nut, and you can adjust it to the angle, so you can unscrew that and slide it if you want it to be more dramatic up in the air kind of look. Let's turn this over to the underside. Now, the very first recognition models that were used by the United States were made by Bronze Art, and they were cast metal and very heavy, very costly, and they quickly went away from that. But they did start out in 72nd scale as well, which I believe this is 72nd scale. So it's possible this could be one of those Bronze Art produced ones. But I do not see any markings on this at all to indicate that it is. And the actual recognition Bronze Art ones did have the aircraft name and USAC for Air Corps stamped on them, which this does not have. So the company may have continued to produce these since they'd already made the molds for other purposes other than recognition. So that's kind of a neat piece. Extremely heavy again. Now let's move on to the next. Next up, we have a couple of books geared towards the youth. This one more towards children, and this one more towards a little bit of an older, maybe 10 to 15-year-old. And I find these fascinating. I think, a lot of them have got just some fantastic artwork in them, but it kind of gives you an idea of how aviation was being presented to the youth of the era. So take a look at this first one. Kind of a stylized propeller transport on there. This orange and blue was a very common color for a lot of things in the starting from about the late 30s through late 40s. It was a really common color combination, really striking, I think, vivid. So here we got the inside. A little airport scene. This is from 1949. Fiddler Company. And kids playing around, going out to the airport, seeing their dad, different types of planes. Looks like a Cessna 180, I think. So pretty fun little story. Get a kid interested in aviation. The next up, this I believe is a British produced book. Wonder Book of Aircraft. And starts out with a breakout of what the main parts of an aircraft are. It's called a Elizabethan class aeroplane. I think this might have been called the Ambassador. I'm not super familiar with British prop transports, but I think that might be it. Got the Canberra on the back. It also mentions Roland Beaumont, one of my favorite pilots of all time. You set the cross the Atlantic, first flight for a jet. So a lot of historical stuff, some artwork, photographs, history. So this one's mainly geared towards, appears to be civilian. Don't really see any warcraft in here, not much of it. So I thought that was kind of a neat little book. Next up we have some logbooks. It says this is a regulation pilot's logbook. And this is for a Philip Alexander Summers in Beverly Hills, California. Date of birth was 10/20/1898. And this was issued in 1940. So this guy was 42 years old when he got licensed through Coolidge, or no, I'm sorry, Eldridge. Oh, no, actually 1939. So here's his actual log. Huntington Park. And looks like this is when he soloed. 1940. Oops. Hours and 50 minutes. So he's flying some Luscombe, Cubs, Luscombes. Had some motor trouble on one flight. And another Luscombe. So not a whole lot filled out in here. What I did find interesting is the list of air regulations was pretty small. That's it. And there is this edition here with some updates. For pilot ratings, new editions as well here. So that's kind of neat. Then this is a product that was put out by Atlantic Richfield. And it includes a pilot log, an engine logbook, and an aircraft logbook. And you can see it's got a button on the back here, so this would have been, hung inside the aircraft, stayed with the aircraft itself. Let me open it up. Got a pencil. And you've got your engine log. You've got your, I can't quite read that, pilot's logs, and this must be the airframe log. So same type of stuff, but with a lot of Atlantic Richfield branding all over it. This has never been used. You can kind of see what it looked like when it was first given. It's kind of a neat thing. And let's see what's next. And lastly, we have what I believe are World War II German aircraft manufacturers display models as well. This one here appears to be a BF-110 or ME-110. Kind of stylized. This isn't a trench art piece because it does have a good manufactured mounting here. Feels like it's cast aluminum. And then also this other one, another reason why I think it's manufactured as opposed to trench art is because it's got the same propellers basically on these and the same thing on the bottom. This one does have some markings on it, which I'm going to be trying to do some research to figure out who may have been the producer of this. But this one appears to me to be a FW200 Courier. They're very stylized, but still has the distinct look of an FW200. So that's about it. That's the major stuff. A few other little trinkets here and there. But overall, this was a pretty neat show. You know, definitely benefited from that one family unloading a bunch of stuff. You know, certainly had a tremendous amount of things to look at. I could have filled up an entire truck and bring home myself. They can't bring home everything. But hope you enjoy seeing all this stuff. If you like this kind of stuff, you know, definitely leave a positive, you know, review in the comments. You know, I do go to shows frequently, and if this is something you guys like seeing, I certainly can, you know, film some of this stuff and show you what some of these, you know, bring homes are. Even though they're not, you know, directly related to, you know, an actual vintage model kit. I think people who are into the vintage model kits are probably into this same kind of stuff as well too, and will find this pretty neat. So thanks for watching, and we'll be getting back to some plastics the rest of this week. Have yourself a great rest of the day.